Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear participants. Welcome to this session of moral lessons from the Quran. We are going to study another passage from the Quran today and inshallah draw inspiration from this passage. And as this month of Ramadan comes to an end, renew our pledge and commitment to study the Quran and not only study it, but receive reminders from it and continuously be in touch with the book of God the way we have been in touch with this book almost every day. This should be a regular feature of our lives, and inshallah, hopefully, this will be incorporated in our lives. So the verses that we are going to read today, they are actually verses 151 and 152 of Surah Al Anam. So let me just read out the text and translation. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. قُلْ تَعَالَوْا أَتْلُ مَا حَرَّمَ رَبُّكُمْ عَلَيْكُمْ أَلَّا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَوْلَادَكُمْ مِنْ إِمْلَاقٍ نَحْنُ نَرْزُقُكُمْ وَإِيَّاهُمْ وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الْفَوَاحِشَ مَا ظَهَرَ مِنْهَا وَمَا بَطَنَ وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا النَّفْسَ الَّتِي حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ ذَلِكُمْ وَصَّاكُمْ بِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ ولا تقربوا مال اليتيم إلا بالتي هي أحسن حتى يبلغ أشده وأوفوا الكيل والميزان بالقسط لا نكلف نفسا إلا وسعها وإذا قلتم فاعدلوا ولو كان ذا قربى وبعهد الله أوفوا ذلكم وصاكم به لعلكم تذكرون وأن هذا صراطي مستقيما فاتبعوه ولا تتبعوا السبل فتفرق بكم عن سبيله ذلكم وصاكم به لعلكم تتقون. Tell them, come, I shall tell you what your Lord has forbidden to you. Do not associate anything with him. Treat your parents with kindness. Never be unkind to them, and kill not your children for fear of poverty. We provide you also and shall provide them too. And do not even go near vulgarities, whether they are open or hidden. And do not kill without justification any soul forbidden by God. These are the things God directs you to, so that you use your intellect. And that do not go near the wealth of an orphan except in the way that is better for him until he reaches maturity. And weigh with honesty and full measure. We do not burden a soul with more than it can bear. And when you speak, speak the truth, even if the matter is about your relatives, and fulfill God's promise. These are the things God directs you to so that you receive a reminder. And God has stated, only this is my straight path, so follow it alone, and do not tread on other paths, lest they lead you away from the path of your Lord. These are the things to which he has directed you so that you may remain secure from his punishment. Again, you can see it's such a moving and a beautiful passage which consists of things that we should abstain from and at the same time things that we should adopt. And this is a very common and a normal feature of the Quran, as you must have now become very used to, that the Quran proscribes and at times urges people at the same time to abstain from certain things, and it urges them to adopt certain things. And we have been discussing this all along this mini series, that as far as morality is concerned, so you see, it is not that the Quran is informing us about ethics and morals for the first time. We already have these morals and ethics and this good conduct ingrained in us. This is something that we have brought from the Almighty. I mean, this is born with us, and that is why we call it as innate guidance. And such is the extensive nature, or I would say the comprehensive nature of this innate guidance, that every single human being born on this earth has this innate guidance, regardless of the faith that he follows. This is the starting point with which every single human being begins his life with. And so therefore, precisely for this reason, these are called the universal truths, or universally acknowledged truths, because not a single person can dispute them. So when the Quran actually mentions these things, The purpose is not to, for the first time, tell us that these are the things which are prohibited and these are the things which are allowed. But as we have been discussing this all along, the Quran's purpose is to remind us about these things which are already known to us. Because we are human beings, because we tend to forget, because we tend to be indifferent at times, because some of the times biases, prejudices overcome us, we tend to lose sight of these universal truths. But as soon as we are reminded of these universal truths, we immediately realize that yes, this is the call of truth and we have to submit to it. So remember always that whenever we discuss the moral message of the Quran or verses which are related to morality and ethics, it's basically the Quran's style of reminding us of this innate guidance, this guidance that we have brought with us, so that at all times we remain in sight of it. And the other thing which it keeps suggesting us, is to have a strong God connection. Because if we have that strong God connection, then these innate abilities and faculties that we have with us, that we brought with us, they will always remain sharp. We will be sensitive to these universal truths, and at the same time very, very concerned that we might not, or we should not violate them. So a strong God connection coupled with the Quran, in which these reminders are continuously given to us, is the way out for every believer, because none of us can claim that we have once and for all conquered sin or evil, because humanly this is impossible, and humanly we are always needed. We always need these reminders. We always need cautioning and prodding, not only from the Quran, but also from our society and people around us who are concerned about our spiritual well-being. So the first thing which is stated here, of course, is something that we all are very familiar with. Allah tushriku bihi shay'a, that you should not associate anyone with God, because this is a blatant sin. No one absolutely can have this authority to tell us that God has partners except God himself. And because God himself has never ever said that he has partners, so therefore people who ascribe partners to him, they are ascribing a lie to him. If it's a falsehood that they attribute to him, and that is why precisely why the Quran calls polytheism or shirk to be iftara Allah, which means that you are imputing falsehood to God, and this is the most heinous crime. And if one deliberately indulges in it, then the Quran says that it will not be forgiven in the hereafter. And then it says, وَبِالْ وَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. And as you must have seen this pattern also emerge in the Quran, that immediately after the rights of God, in most cases, on most occasions, you'll find parents being mentioned, because after the Almighty, one of our greatest benefactors after the Almighty, they are our parents indeed, and there is no disputing this fact. So as you can see, the verse says, وَبِالْ وَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا, which means you treat them kindly, treat them compassionately, don't be rude to them. Even if you have to differ with them, you can easily do it with a lot of politeness. It is not that you are required to comply with what they say all the time, because of course, when it's your own life that you have to decide, or you have to take certain decisions, it is not that your parents have been given this authority to impose the decisions on you. But at the same time, if they have an opinion about a certain decision that you have taken, and they present that opinion, then instead of rudely rejecting it or being impudent to them, the Quran wants us to talk to them in a very polite way. And if we have to express a difference of opinion, then it should be in a polite way. So we can be polite without being stern. This is a tact that we have to learn. And believe me, this takes a lot of time, a lot of patience, and a lot of preparation, I would say, in which you prepare yourself in advance that you will not talk back to your parents, even if you think that they are doing something which is absolutely wrong, or they have no right to do it. At times, parents do take this liberty. But it is the children, and grown-up children especially, who have to realize that this is where they have to stop. They don't need to follow every directive that they give us, but at the same time, they must not talk back to them in the way that is absolutely, based on arrogance or impudence. So that would be absolutely something that we have to do away with. So, وَبِالْ وَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. And then, as you can see, the Quran, when it progresses forward, the words it uses, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَوْلَادَكُمْ مِنْ إِمْلَاقٍ نَحْنُ نَرْزُقُكُمْ وَإِيَّاهُمْ. So you know that the Quran was revealed in a society in a particular era in which infanticide, which means killing children for fear of poverty, was a very common practice. Especially the female child would be put to death. It would be buried alive. We know from other instances in the Quran, and also if we know Arab history, this was a very common phenomena. And the reason that they would do so was imlaq, which means poverty, and they would think that because a girl child, when she grows up, is going to be a burden on the family, and she's not going to be an earning hand, so they would just kill her in infancy, which is of course unthinkable. It's something which gives us those shudders, and our hair stands on ends when we hear that people kill their children because of poverty. And if not poverty, today we even have people crippling their children for the sake of making them beggars. So although killing them for poverty is something the Quran says is absolutely not allowed, and the Quran actually makes this point that if you kill them because of poverty, don't forget that it is not you who's providing them with sustenance or food. The Quran in fact says it is we. I mean, the Almighty says it is we that provide not only you but them. So if we are providing you for the parents, why would we not provide your children? So don't think that you are the sustainers of your children. No, God says, I am the sustainer and I'm going to look after them. So this is a wake-up call, of course, for those people today in our society who end up crippling their children. You might not know this, but this happens in third world countries in which this is a profession which is adopted to earn sympathies of people. They cripple their children, they cripple themselves, and they make their children do certain things which is absolutely unthinkable. So the Quran has given this wake-up call, and it's of course is something which goes through us in a very moving way. And then it says, "Wala taqrabul fawahisha ma zahara minha wa ma batan." Again, something which the Quran often repeats. It says that don't go near lustful activities. Don't even go near vulgarities, whether they are hidden or whether they are open. And of course, vulgarity or fawahish, whether they are done openly or they are done secretly. The Quran does not say that do not indulge in them. It is exactly the same style which is adopted regarding adultery. And it says that don't even go near it. Don't even la taqrabu zina, as it is used in Surah Bani Israel. Similarly, here it is said la taqrabul fawahish, that don't even think of going there, which means that anything which might lead you to this heinous act or these vulgarities should be abstained from. And amongst these things, of course, are something which the Almighty has already prescribed as the Sharia in the Quran. The foremost of these being guarding our gazes from taking undue liberty, and also wearing decent dress so that you are not able to display your contours or your private parts in a way that might be absolutely unbecoming. So these are the starting areas. But then, of course, there are so many other attractions and lures which ultimately are responsible of taking a person to these acts that they have to be avoided. And again, you see, all these sins that we need to avoid, they can only be avoided if we have the strong connection with God. Because what stops us from these sins? It is that thinking, it is that sense of accountability that God is watching us. And look, in this month of Ramadan, that even when no one is watching us, no one of us even dares to think of even eating or drinking, even if no one is looking at us. Why? Because this appreciation that God is watching us is so pronounced in the month of Ramadan. So exactly here, the Quran tells us that la taqrabul fawahisha ma zahara minha wa ma, but then don't think that God is not watching you. He is watching you everywhere. So keep yourself far away from these things, because you never know how you might end up with. And this is a one-off happening which might make you so embarrassed, or might do something so wrong in your life that you keep regretting it for the rest of your life. So a very, very apt the advice which the Quran has given here. And then it says, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا النَّفْسَ الَّتِي حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ ذَلِكُمْ وَصَّاكُمْ بِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ. That do not kill any person who God has regarded as sacred, unless there is a justification for this. Zalikum wasakum bihi, which means that these are the things that God has directed you to, so that you use your intellect. Zalikum wasakum bihi la'allakum ta'qilun, so that you use your intellect. So wala taqtulu nafs allati harramallah, of course, prescribes and gives us this great sanctity of human life. You just cannot think of taking human life, because human life has been created by God and it can only be taken with God's permission. And we know from the Quran that the only two instances in which a human life can be taken or capital punishment can be administered is if the person is guilty himself of killing someone, or is guilty of spreading disorder or anarchy in the land, which is called by the Quran as fasad fil ard. And that too, in all these cases, no one himself or herself has the authority to take such a step. It is always the state which is going to do so, and of course, on the basis of these two crimes only. So, if God has given sanctity to human life, and this sanctity has to be maintained at all costs. You see, there is this savagery and this beastliness found in human beings, and in some of them, this is found to a pronounced extent in tribal areas, particularly, or war-torn areas. Human life becomes so cheap that taking a human life, or not regarding it to be of value, becomes a very normal thing. And because the Arabs were a warring nation, and it was in this background that the Prophet and his companions and the rest of the people have been told that don't think that this life is something that you can take for very trivial reasons, just to satisfy perhaps your own ego, or to pacify your own anger. No, this cannot be done, because this is something which the Almighty has kept sacred. So again, something which is very pertinent in the society, to the society that we are living in. The Quran then goes on to say that وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا مَالَ الْيَتِيمِ إِلَّا بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ حَتَّى يَبْلُغَ أَشُدَّهُ وَأَوْفُوا الْكَيْلَ وَالْمِيزَانَ بِالْقِسْطِ, that do not even go near the wealth of orphans except in a goodly manner until the orphan reaches maturity. Again, you would see that the issue of orphans is brought up a lot in the Quran, because of course they are one of the weakest sections of a society, and particularly in the war-torn society of Arabs, because a lot of men would be martyred or they would be killed. So you'll find the young boys or girls, orphans of all ages, in vast numbers in that society. This was particularly true. Of course, this doesn't mean that it's not true today, but in those times, orphans were someone who were, they were entities who were found everywhere, and they were guardians of these orphans, and they are actually told and directed that they should not use this wealth. In fact, the word again uses la taqrabu, don't even go near the wealth of these orphans except in a goodly way, which means that, of course, if there is a way in which you have to spend for the orphans, and at times you have to use that wealth for yourself to maintain the orphans, then of course it is fine. But as soon as they reach maturity, as soon as they are mentally aware, then you have to hand this wealth back to them, because you are only guardians which were required to do so when they were young. أَوْفُوا الْكَيْلَ وَالْمِيزَانَ بِالْقِسْطِ لَا نُكَلِّفُ نَفْسًا إِلَّا وُسْعَهَا, which of course again is something which the Quran says that weigh with honesty and with full measure. Again, we know that the Arabs were traders, and this was something which has continued ever since. Trading and measuring and weighing with honesty, of course, is something which is always involved when you are selling merchandise. And in particular, you can find this happening at a very large scale in all societies today, that whatever goods are being sold, they are sold either by measuring them in a particular quantity, or by weighing them in a particular way. So it has to be in a very honest way, because when we're not doing so, you are actually being dishonest with the person or with the consumer. And that is something we very well know, that the people of Shuaib, of the Prophet Shuaib, they were deeply inflicted with. And when they coupled this evil habit with polytheism, and warned them a number of times, and they did not pay heed to his warnings, and they were destroyed from the face of the earth. So very important is this element, as well. Quran says, "La nukallifu nafsan illa wus'aha," that not burden a soul beyond its capability. Of course, this is a normal instance in which the Sharia is given such that people are able to follow it. However, as we have discussed before, that in punishments, no, this verse does not apply, because for punishments, yes, the Almighty at times burdens the soul beyond his responsibility, because of course it's a punishment. وَإِذَا قُلْتُمْ فَعْدِلُوا, when you say, you speak the truth, وَلَوْ كَانَ ذَا قُرْبَى, even if it is your relative that you have to speak against. So at other instances, it is said that you have to be just, even if that justice is against your own interest. But here it is said, إِذَا قُلْتُمْ فَعْدِلُوا وَلَوْ كَانَ ذَا قُرْبَى. When you speak something, when you converse something, please be truthful, even if it is against your dearest of people, because this is something which is absolutely, held dear to God, that you don't lie, don't impute falsehood to others, and you don't speak anything which is against the truth. وَبِعَهْدِ اللَّهِ أَوْفُوا, that you obey your covenant with God, of course, referring to the Sharia, which itself is the covenant. This is something which is between us and the Almighty. ذَلِكُمْ وَصَّاكُمْ بِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَذَكَّرُونَ. So this is the thing these are the things which have been given as advice to you, so that you pay heed. And وَأَنَّ هَذَا صِرَاطِي مُسْتَقِيمًا فَاتَّبِعُوهُ, and that this is the way, only this is my straight path. So again, referring to the previous directives, the Quran says that this alone is my straight path. It leads to me, which means, in other way, that you follow these things, you will be able to come close to me. وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا السُّبُلَ. In other words, it means that do not tread other paths which lead you astray, which are deviant paths. They will just lead you away from the path of your Lord. Again, ذَلِكُمْ وَصَّاكُمْ بِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. He has directed you so that you may remain secure from his punishment. So once again, you see how this passage beautifully sums up the moral message of the Quran, and how effectively it gives those calls time and again. You can see this verse repeated thrice, ذَلِكُمْ وَصَّاكُمْ بِهِ, ذَلِكُمْ وَصَّاكُمْ بِهِ, which gives you this strong message that this is what the Almighty wants us to do. This is what he wants us to adhere to. So with this prayer that the Almighty blesses us with this urge to follow these moral directives, I am now available for your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad, for raising some pertinent issues. The first question I have Fatma. Fatma, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. I have a question related to adultery and nikah. For example, I'm just giving you a hypothetical situation that, for example, a girl is going for an arranged marriage, and in an arranged marriage, you don't know the past of the other person. And the girl is chaste, but God forbid the man is an adulterer, and he's also negligent in terms of following religion, and he doesn't seek God's forgiveness for his sins before the nikah. So technically speaking, it's like a marriage between an afifa and a zani, although the girl doesn't know that the man is an adulterer. So such a nikah, would this kind of a nikah be valid?
Yes, absolutely, it will be valid, because the adulterer which is proscribed by the Quran is one who has been punished through the court, who has been caught and punished through the court and declared as a offender. Otherwise, people who indulge in adultery and they are not reported, of course, this is something which is, something which should never be done. But then this is not the rule which the Quran is prescribing when it says that chaste people should marry chaste women, or chaste women should marry chaste men. The chastity here refers to the fact that they are people who are not convicted as criminals in this particular crime, as long as they are not convicted. But of course, if it comes to one's knowledge before marriage, no one would go forth with this marriage. But in this hypothetical situation, in which a girl, or for that matter, the man knows later that his opposite or her opposite is indulging in such activities, they always have the option to break up or to ask each other to mend ways. But as far as the marriage is concerned, it is absolutely valid, because, as I said, the invalidity of the marriage is related to convicted adulterers, not to adulterers who are blamed of adultery, or they are thought of being adulterers, or who have a bad reputation of being adulterers. Because you see, if you even get to know that there's a person who is who has such a reputation, no one would marry that person. So that is something of a virtual impossibility. It becomes a possibility only then when a person has become a convict, because when a person becomes a convict, he is declared as a convict in the society, and everyone knows that he has been punished. So it is about such people that the Quran says that you cannot marry them.
Okay, so even if they like don't seek forgiveness, still the nikah would be valid.
Nikah would be absolutely valid. The other thing, I mean, what they need to do is to now make a serious effort in either thinking that they are doing something which is very wrong and which will hold them accountable before the Almighty. I mean, one of them who is indulging in that, and he or she should stop doing so. Or, of course, if this doesn't happen, then either of them has the option of ending the marriage. But as I said, nikah will be valid. Nikah is related to a convicted adulterer or an adulteress. If such is the case, then that will not be valid.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad and Fatma. Thank you for your question. Dr. Shehzad, about the discussion that you had about parents not to be killing their children because of poverty, I have an extended question with a premise from Dania. What about those families that are quite poor and find it harder to take care of their children that they already have, but then they tend to give birth to dozens and dozens of children and unquote that Allah would take care of them? Are there any guidelines available for such mindsets? And she continues that I have to fight a lot with this mindset with the community where I'm serving. They don't have anything to eat sometimes, but on the other hand, they use their wives just for pursuing this reproduction process. And then the rest of the children suffer as mother is unable to take care of them owing to her health issues. Recently, a mother died while giving birth to a child for being so weak and she couldn't survive. So how would you give guidance here?
So this is a very sorry state of affairs, and this is prevalent in most rural areas of many third world countries. And one of the reasons for this is that many of the people who live there, they think that contraceptive techniques which prevent childbirth, they are against religion. So one of the reasons for this mindset is that they think that if they indulge in this, they would be virtually, going against the Quran. So they have to be educated, and they have to be told that this is certainly not against the Quran. Planned parenthood is something which everyone has the option, and therefore you would like the number of children to be according to your own family, according to your own involvements. People are so involved in a lot of activities that they have to realize that it's not just producing children, you have to groom them, and grooming would mean that you have to give them time, and this is not easy if you're a very busy person. So you see, this planned parenthood is something which is absolutely advocated by the Quran. We have to use our common sense. And rural areas in which this is not prevalent, unfortunately, this is a sort of a ailment, I would say, which has afflicted these areas. And one of the reasons is that there are a lot of religious clergy in these areas. They give them this opinion that contraception is against religion, and if you take these measures, it would be virtually like killing a child before it is born. So this mindset has to be addressed, and when you address mindsets, things don't get immediately reformed. It takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of patience. But always remember, Dania, since you've asked this question, that we have to try our best. Whether the solution actually we are able to solve the problem or not, it depends on so many contingent factors that we should leave this. Regardless of the outcome, whatever we think is right in our own limited circle of influence, we should try to do whatever we think is right and propagate that right thing, and don't get frustrated if things don't change, because you see, bringing about a change is not our responsibility. To try to change, to try to make people change their line of thinking, if you think that they are not correct, that of course is our responsibility. That the Almighty might even ask us or hold us accountable that did you do enough? So I think it's more of a question of asking ourselves, are we doing enough or not? So forget about what is happening in the society, because these challenges are not going to end because of a lot of issues which relate to our ignorant mindset. But the thing is, with wisdom, with sagacity, by not annoying people, at the same time educating them, taking a step back, then taking 2 steps further back maybe, and then recouping, and then once again going to people. So it's like a concern that you have. You see, like a mother, when she sees that her child has fallen into evil or into bad company, she never backs away from her child. What she does is she thinks of different lines in which she could come and talk to her child, or bring that sanity prevail in that child. So you have to be that concerned parent, behave as a concerned individual, a concerned citizen, that it's not your responsibility to, I mean, absolutely bring things to normal, because this is way beyond you. God has not asked you to that. All that you need to do, or you should do, is to try your best. That is all. And in this particular way, success begins immediately when you begin. So success, as I always say, is not a destination. It's the journey itself. When you start this journey, you are on the path to success, because that is what is required. Reaching the destination is a bonus, and it is contingent on God's plan, His grand scheme, which involves so many other things that it's humanly impossible to even gauge them. So I would say that be patient, continue with your work, even if it is not rewarding you, even if you are hearing a lot of criticism. Just patiently go on doing your work, and be as wise as possible and as patient as possible. And this is what is all required of you. And have strong faith in God, strong connection with God. This is something which will always help you in moving forward, and not deter you in the wake of this adversity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shehzad. Referring to some other lectures that we have had in other series, you have mentioned that predestination is a biblical construct. However, when we read Surah Al Imran and come to Ayah 26, when Allah Ta'ala is the sovereign, and we, it has been told to the Prophet to pray that, Lord, the sovereign of all sovereignty, you grant sovereignty to whom you please and take it away from whom you please. You grant honor to whomever you please and humiliate whomsoever you please. The ayat, or min tasha wa tazillu man tasha. What does that mean then? Nothing is in a human being's control. Even honor and sovereignty is something big, but even honor and humiliation. So does this not equate to the construct of predetermination?
Absolutely not, because generally the word "man yasha," "Kulillahumma malikal mulki tu'til mulka man tasha," the word "tasha," which means the will of the Almighty, is understood to mean that as if He is someone who would do haphazardly whatever comes to his mind, or whatever he would like to do. This is by not understanding the whole collective context of the Quran. So you see, the context of the Quran is that all of us know, we just read about it several times in this series, that polytheism was so much prevalent in Arabia that they would think that their deities could influence God and stop Him, or make Him do some things. So when the word "man yasha" is used, it is never used in this context, or seldom used in this context, that, well, He can do whatever He wants to. No. The stress is that these deities are not going to stop Him. They're not going to hold His hand when He decides to do something. He is going to do it. And then other instances, it is further clarified that his tasha, his will, is actually based on wisdom. He does all these things according to a grand scheme which He has made. And when He does so, no one is going to stop Him. These deities that you are worshipping, and you think that they are going to influence Him, this is not the right thing. He is absolute. He is Malikul Mulk. He is the owner of sovereignty. So if you think that you're going to have a say before Him, you can intercede for other people before Him, this is living in a fool's paradise. So it is in this background that such verses occur. So one should not be misled to think that this is God telling everyone that He has made this decision and He'll do it whatever He likes, whatever He likes. No, as I said, this has this background of telling people, no, that your deities are not going to influence, but that once God takes a decision according to His wisdom, that wisdom is going to be implemented solely by Him, and your own idols, they are not going to influence God in any way. So if this, if this is understood, if this background is understood, I think a lot of other verses similarly will also be clarified, because it is similarly said on some other occasions that God guides whomsoever He wants, and He leads astray whomsoever He wants. We have so many verses. So again, people ask this question that, well, if God has decided to lead people astray, And if he's decided to guide them, then this is like everything has been already programmed by God. Now, here again, the stress is the same, that when God decides to guide someone, these deities or these people who think that they are going to lead people astray, they are not going to have any influence on God. So you have to understand that this is the whole context. And this particular verse has been explained, the verse which I was just referring to, that yudillu bihi kasiran wa yahdi bihi kasira is, something to this effect. The Quran says that the Almighty yudillu bihi kasira. Through these parables which are mentioned in Surah Baqarah, it says that God leads astray through these parables, yudillu bihi kasira, a lot, wa yahdi bihi kasira, and he also guides through these parables many people. And then it says, وَمَا يُضِلُّ بِهِ إِلَّا الْفَاسِقِينَ. He only misguides those who are defiant. So in other words, the first thing which is negated is that these deities have no say before God. And the second thing which is negated is that his guidance is not haphazard, or his misguidance is not haphazard. He misguides those who choose misguidance for themselves. He guides those who are worthy of being guided. So if you understand this whole construct, it will become very easy for you that in the backdrop of the Quran, where was this issue of intercession, or this issue of idols and deities interceding on behalf of these worshippers, that has been actually discussed in the Quran in this way.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad. However, there is also a mention of Allah forgives them, or Allah accepts repentance of those that He wills. That also occurs in Surah Zimr.
It is in exactly similar context. There are other verses as well. When it says that He forgives in such a way, again, the import here, or the purport here, is basically that He forgives those people who are worthy of forgiveness, who have this potential that they are really sorry and they are ashamed or embarrassed and they would like to reform themselves. So do have a recourse to the Quran when you come across these verses, that you gather similar verses of the Quran. So one of the reasons of at times not understanding the Quran, or some of the complexities of the Quran, is that you don't look for parallel verses. So one of the ways of doing tafsir, if you remember that we were studying this when I was teaching this course on understanding the Quran, which all authorities, including the traditional school and the Farai school, they lay great stress on, is Al-Quran yufassiru ba'dahu ba'd. That one portion of the Quran explains the other portion, which means that if there is some brevity at one place, then the same thing is explained comprehensively at another place. So if you find something very concise and not making sense, look it up at some other place. And there are so many tools now which are available online, as well as in the form of books, in which you can cross-reference verses and as a result get to the bottom of the matter.
Thank you, Ustad. That's a very valuable advice. Adil Qureshi, you may have your question now.
Ji, Salam, Dr.
Walaikum salam.
So, forgive me for asking, but is this the right place or the time to ask question about the grammatical structure of the ayah, or are you the right person to ask this?
Yes, sure. If you would like to.
Right. So the ayah says, this ayah that we are studying says, and I'll probably switch to Urdu to make my question a bit more easily asked. So, وَأَنَّ هَذَا صِرَاطِي مُسْتَقِيمًا. And in Surah Fatiha, हम देखते हैं कि वहाँ पे ये कहा गया कि इहदिना सिरातल मुस्तकीमा. So यहाँ पे सिराती मुस्तकीमन और वहाँ पे अस्सिरात अल मुस्तकीमा. So जारी बात है कि उन दोनों के साथ अल लगा दिया गया. So क्या वजह है कि वहाँ पर जब हम अल्लाह से मांग रहे हैं कि हमें सीधा रास्ता दिखा, तो वहाँ पर अल लगाया गया कि दी स्ट्रेट पाथ, उसको मार्फा कर दिया गया. लेकिन यहाँ पे सिराती मुस्तकीमन जो है वो मार्फा नहीं बल्कि नकरा है. एक मेरा सवाल ये है, और दूसरा सवाल जो कि इसी की तफसीर में आमदी साहब ने कहा है कि यहाँ पर ये जो मुस्तकीमन जो है, ये हालत नसब में इस वजह से आया है क्योंकि ये हाल है. सो ये मुझे समझ नहीं आया कि ये हाल कैसे बन गया, हालत नसब में कैसे चला गया.
You see, when you read its translation, look at the translation. Only this is my straight path. So if you compare it with Surah Fatiha, the words are significantly different. The Surah Fatiha words are Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim, which means guide us to the straight path, which is the right path, which is the path of the truth. If you understand that, and you compare this, you'll find that this is absolutely, talking about a different thing here. It says that the that the things that I have delineated above, like the ones I'm just going to refer you to, like for example, La taqrabu mal al yatim or awful bil kail, iza qultum fa'dilu. So see, these are some of the counsels or advice which God has given us. And he says that if you follow these pieces of advice, then this is the straight path which will lead to me. Annahazi sirati mustaqima. And if you are referring to the fact that how is it that this is in the accusative, which means that why is it that it is in the nasabi form, then of course this is how we find that this is called the hal muakkad, in which at times the hal or the accusative of state, as we call it in the English language, it occurs through a noun as well. So a hal doesn't always occur on the basis of a verb. The word sirati itself has the capacity, and at times the demonstrative pronoun haza also has this ability to make something in the accusative. So that is why Ustaz has written that it is in the accusative or it is in the state of nasab because of these reasons. The point that I'm making here is that in Surah Fatiha, we are requesting God to guide us to the straight path. Here it is being said that this is the straight path which God has just said by referring to those universal truths. And it is said that if you follow this straight path, it is going to lead to me.
Right, got it, sir. So just wanted to confirm, Ustad is saying इसका नस्ब हाल के लिए है जिसमें इसमें इशारा फेल का अमल कर रहा है.
Right.
What does this mean? इसमें इशारा
Which means haza, the demonstrative pronoun haza. That is exactly what I was referring to. That at times the word or the demonstrative pronouns, which are ism ishara, they have the ability to make. They have the ability to have a verb concealed in them. When I say this, so of course I'm saying this is. Ye hai. So the word a demonstrative pronoun or ismul ishara actually has the ability of a verb in it. This is how grammarians actually explain. Because you see, to grammarians, a hal can only be of a file or a maf'ul, and it needs a verb. It has to have a verb. Because there is no verb in this verse. A verb is absent. So you see, the problem is that in the absence of a verb, an exegete or a Quran's mufassir has to tell you that how come this is in the accusative, this is in the state of hal, and there is no verb. So this is how grammarians, especially when they are the best run grammarians, they explain that the demonstrative pronoun or the ismul ishara has fi'liyat in it, has a verbal sense in it, and therefore from this verbal sense, mustaqiman is in a state of accusative.
Right, sir. Thank you.
And of course, this is something which would require advanced understanding of grammar. It's slightly advanced in understanding of grammar, and because Ustaz has when you read his tafsir, you'll find various levels of footnotes. So some of the footnotes you might need to ignore if you're not an advanced learner of Arabic, because actually you would do fine even if you don't understand them, because the real thing is the translation that you have read. So such footnotes are basically for advanced learners of Arabic, of Quranic Arabic.
Rohan, you may have your question now.
All right, thank you. Sir, in your youth sessions, you told us that there are certain sexual acts which cannot be regarded haram because they have not been mentioned in Quran, for example, masturbation. But in the ayat we were just studying, it says do not even go towards vulgarity. I just want to know how it does not include those other sexual acts.
This is because when you hide something and you do adultery without other people's notice, when you do some such things which are proscribed, not openly but secretly, when you're watching pornography, for example, or doing things which are unseemly without other people's knowledge, these are all things which come under hidden as things which are done without other people being knowing it. You see, for a proscription of masturbation, you have to have some nas from the Quran, you have to have some verse from the Quran, you have to have something from the Hadith. In the absence of that, I am no one to say something to be forbidden, which has not been forbidden in the Quran, even if I would like to do it. Who am I? Who are we actually? So it is because of this religious. Yes, please go ahead.
I was just curious that when this ayat says that do not even go towards vulgarities, I just want to know how vulgarities do not include the act of masturbation. Isn't it vulgar? Maybe I'm misunderstanding it.
For it to be vulgar, I mean, it has to be classified as a vulgarity. Vulgarity means that it's a public display of sexuality. This is the definition of fawahish. That when sexual organs are I mean displayed in a way that they become promiscuous and they take the form of a public display. That is what we call as something which is fahish or something which is promiscuous. So this is the definition. So we have to make this distinction that the word fahash or fawahish in Quranic Arabic means something which is done unseemly and regarding one's private parts, particularly, I mean, exhibiting them or doing such things as are unseemly, but certainly does not involve masturbation, because you see that is something which is in itself has to be declared as something which should be proscribed. Not only do we not find anything in the Quran, I think I have given you these references from Ibn Hazm in his Al-Muhalla, in which he said that the companions of the Prophet and their followers would say they have been reported to have said such words as, well, this is your water. If you'd like to discharge it, it's up to you. This is I mean, the word used is al-ma, and if you'd like to have it come out of your body, then what's the problem? Yes, what we are actually referring to is that if masturbation is accompanied by other things which are not right, for example, pornography or doing such things which are, I mean, sexually offensive, so that is something which is separately dealt with. But per se, the act of masturbation, in which at times you feel like, I mean, something is gripping you, and you just want to get over with it and get yourself relieved with it, because so you see, it's like a biological function in which it's like feeling thirsty, and I mean, it's not necessary that you feel thirsty when you have done some exercise. So thirst at times comes naturally as well. So similarly, when you self gratify yourself, it's not always that because of that background in which you have watched or listened to something which is of lewd nature. It is at times your body's own requirement as well. And these nocturnal emissions that take place, of course, they are your body's own expression, that if you don't ejaculate yourself, then your body is going to do it for you.
Thank you. Rafiq Waja, you may have a question now.
Dr. Shehzad, our nikah nama is a contract. And very often we find that the woman has been coerced into marrying a man and hasn't had a choice to say no or yes. Is it possible that in this contract, the woman can insist that she can have the right of divorce written? And if that cannot be done, can she at least write that if she finds that she's not happy, and she asks her husband for a divorce, that it is within 3 months he will have to give the divorce? Is either one possible?
I think the second one is more in line with the spirit of Islam, because the Quran wants the right of divorce to be given to the husband. So as far as being given this wife to the wife is concerned, this would be a slight misappropriation. I think the right method would be, which you just mentioned in your second as a second category, in which if a wife thinks that she would like to separate, then she would give this warning to the husband that I mean, either mend your affairs or make up for these differences or resolve the differences, and I give you 90 days or whatever. I mean, you can stipulate a certain number of days. And if this doesn't go away by then it will be mandatory upon you to give me divorce if I demand divorce. Yes, this could be a part of your nikah nama, and I think this is something that must be done, and this is in line with and in spirit with the Sharia. And today in third world countries, many third world countries, a lot of problems have arisen because women at times do want this divorce, and their husbands, they really I mean, they start harassing them and teasing them. It becomes very difficult to take khula on normal grounds. And so that is, I think, the right way out, that you should have this already. Although people are very embarrassed because they think that when the nikah is being conducted, why should divorce be discussed? And they think that it's a bad omen. However, they don't realize that this is not a bad omen. You're not giving you this. I mean, it's not going to happen as if you are programming it to happen. It is just a chance happening that if it happens, that it should happen in the right way.
Thank you. Adil Qureshi, you may have your question now.
Dr. a few days back I asked you Tafaqquh fi Deen, which is a responsibility of a few of the Muslims who want to take religious scholarship as a career. And what is the difference between that and Tawasi bil Haq and Tawasi bil Sabr, which I think every Muslim is supposed to do as per Surah Asr. I was reading Surah Al Imran as well, where I came across this ayah which says, وَلِتَكُنْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ. So I just wanted to understand this Amr bil Maruf wa Nahi anil Munkar. What is that? Is that also a responsibility of every Muslim, or is it only a responsibility of a select few Muslims?
So it depends on the context. So this verse of Surah Al Imran is actually referring to the state authorities. It is referring to the Muslim Ummah and telling them that amongst you should be those people invested with authority who should be able to implement evil and implement good and abstain and make people abstain from evil. And for example, the police force that we have today, or the army that we have today, which if needed to be called to suppress any disorder or unlawful activities. So this is precisely what is meant here. But when Amar bil Maruf and Nahi al Munkar are expressed in terms of the common man, as you find the case in some other verses of the Quran, which say that, for example, believers are those who are given this, who have this responsibility of enjoining good and forbidding evil. Ya'muruna bil ma'ruf wa yanhauna 'anil munkar. For them, then of course it would be that they do so in their own circle of authority, without any use of force. It's more of a advice and an urging or exhorting other people to do so. So you see, it depends on where this verse is being used. And if you read our teacher's book, Mizan, and you read his chapter on the law of preaching, which is Qanun-e-Dawat, he has actually explained how this relates with, or our responsibilities change with our capacities as far as we citizens are concerned. So if we are in the capacity of a ruler, our Amr bil Maruf and Nahi al Munkar will have a different import. If we are in the capacity of scholars, then our Amr bil Maruf and Nahi al Munkar will have another significance, or a more nuanced thing would be added to it. If we are the progeny of Abraham, which we are, of course, and we behave collectively, then the responsibility of Amr bil Maruf will again be discharged in a particular way. And finally, if we are a common person, a common man, we just belong to a common category of Muslims, then our Amr bil Maruf and Nahi al Munkar, of course, would be something else. So I think if you just go and revisit those chapters, so he has equated this responsibility. I mean, he has related this responsibility with respect to the various capacities that we might have. So some of us are scholars, some of our common men, some of our belong to the ruling class. So for each, this responsibility changes, and the circle of this responsibility also either increases or decreases.
Right, sir. I'll go through the book. I just wanted to understand what's the difference between Amr bil Maruf and Tawasi bil Haq. Are they one and the same thing if they are applicable to a common man, or are they different? But I'll probably
the common man, of course. You see, Amr bil Maruf relates to things which Maruf is a word which relates to things which are universally good, and Munkar are universally proscribed things. But Tawasi bil Haq and Tawasi bil Sabr relates to things which a person in that capacity regards to be the truth. And because of the fact that this truth also has a religious aspect to it, so therefore it was not confined to just the universal truths. So a person who is a common person, and he is a person who, for example, practices the prayer, he offers the prayer, and he would feel or he would like that his friends or maybe his family also follow suit and become regular people who offer prayer. So for him, Tawasi bil Haq would include that if he has the chance to give this example, to set this example by offering the prayer himself, and at times, if it comes to conversation, to give them this advice as well. So for them, for the common man, Tawasi bil Haq is not just confined to Amr bil Maruf in the sense that only universal truths are to be propagated, but it also refers to some of the aspects which does not require any scholarship, and they are basic precepts of religion itself.
Thank you. I have a question again in the chat. What if the chemistry amongst the couples does not match with one another even after years, and they sacrifice their well-being and satisfaction for the sake of their children's well-being? Is this a good practice in light of Islamic values?
I think this is a personal call that every couple has the choice to make. At times, the couple just pulls along because of the children. At times, there are other contingencies. They don't want to besmear themselves in the society. They just want to have this outward appearance that they are fine. At times, it is the financial issue in which a wife or a husband would think that if they get separated, then one of them might suffer. So you see, these are some of the problems that make us compromise or reconcile with the other partner in spite of some of the excesses that we might be facing, not only because of the chemistry being different, but because of, everyday altercations that might take place as a result. So there is no hard and fast rule which is given. You have the choice to separate. You have the choice to pull along as far as you can. You have the choice to accommodate. So you see, because of the fact that every person has a different capacity, so the Almighty didn't give a blanket ruling, for it would have been very unjust. It has left it to one's own circumstances and discretion to evaluate the circumstances, which would be different for different people. And if they think that nothing can work and it would be hell as it is, and it would be difficult to bear, so of course the divorce option is always there. But if they think, yes, they can make that sacrifice and this would be something that they're doing for their children, again, it's their own call. So, I mean, it is a wide discretion which God has given us. And because of the fact that every single couple has so many different circumstances that they are going through, that it would have been very unfair to give a rule of a particular verdict in this, that if this happens, then you should separate, and this happens, you should not separate.
Thank you. I hope this has helped. Rafia Khwaja, you can ask your question, and this will be the last question for today.
Dr. Shehzad, something very tragic happened today, as everybody knows. A young woman killed herself, blew herself, and killed a few other people. Now she was married with 2 children. I just wanted to ask your opinion. When someone does this, obviously, is she not near God? Is she an atheist? Or what would do such people don't think what is going to happen when they die? Killing yourself is obviously haram, but killing innocent lives. And then her husband apparently was very happy with what she had done. So I read all about it, and it's been puzzling me. What sort of mindset do these people have who go and perform such evil acts? Just wanted your thinking about it.
I think, on the contrary, they think that they are very close to God. Because unless they have this push, they cannot, end up giving their lives. So wrongly or rightly, in their own opinion, I'm not talking about my or your opinion, I'm just analyzing that people who go to such great extremes as to give up their life, and that too in such a horrible way that you blow yourself up, that's not an easy undertaking. It can only happen when you believe so strongly that this is the right thing to do and this is what is going to take you to heaven, that only this thing can make you push you to such an extreme thing. It's obviously a very flawed understanding, but this flawed understanding is what has created suicide bombings, because they think that when they do this, they would be immediately landing in paradise. So it's a question of how you view a particular act. So you, of course, we would differ with their understanding to the utmost. But if you ask me, I'll tell you that unless they have such a strong push from God Himself, according to their understanding of the Quran, they cannot go to such an extreme.
What about killing 3 other people?
Because they think that they're killing. Because if you ask them, they'll give you a justification. They might have thought in their own estimation that these people have done something which is against religion. They have become non-believers. They have become worthy of being killing. So you see, this is something that is very easy to know, because in religious terminology, when a person becomes a disbeliever or a murtad, which means an apostate, because of the fact that the Quran, I mean, not the Quran, of course, but there's a hadith which has another context, which says, "Man baddala deenahu faqtuluhu," a person who changes his religion or a person who becomes an enemy of God, which is mentioned elsewhere in the Quran, "Qatilu a'immatal kufr." So you see, you can just misunderstand a lot of verses on some narratives of the Prophet and end up thinking that this is what is the right course for you. So killing, of course, is mentioned in the Quran. It is also mentioned in the Hadith, but then it has a context. If you misinterpret that context, this is what is going to happen. It's nothing new that has happened. This has been happening for the past 4 or 5 decades. So we have to understand the narrative of suicide bombers. Their narrative is that they think that such people who have become enemies of Islam or have given up on Islam or they have hostile intentions against Islam or have left Islam. There is a long list of things which make them worthy of being killed, in their opinion. So whenever
because they are non-Muslims, that's why they were Chinese, maybe.
You see, I cannot say that for certain because I mean we never got the chance to ask that lady. She must have had this justification because this is what the justification normally is. So which one of these checklists are going to be ticked? Because we know that these are 5 or 6 occasions or 5 or 6 reasons because of which suicide bombings take place. And this we can only know on the day of judgment when that a woman is called to account.
Will they go straight to hell, I think?
Well, let this be this be God's judgment. All that we can say is that she did an incredibly wrong act. It's absolutely unjustified in taking the life of such people. But again, as I said, let's leave this judgment to God.
Thank you. I just had to make a comment here. Perhaps this particular act of these days was not religiously motivated. It was politically motivated. So perhaps that's another discussion.
That could be a twist as well. So if that was the case, then of course there could be other reasons for that. But personally, I think that I mean politically motivated acts, and particularly involving women having young children, giving up their lives, is hardly. I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think it's a remote possibility. But because we have had no, I mean, we don't have the other side of the story before us, so it's all speculation and conjecture that we can end up with.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shehzad. That's the end of the line of questions.